learned to recognize controlling environments, controlling belief systems, and controlling people was I started trying things out for myself. I stopped listening to them and I started paying attention to me. And when I started doing that, you can start seeing a kickback. You can see how people react, and it's fine to ask questions, but it wasn't really questions that I was getting. It was more like they were trying to create fear in what I was doing. It wasn't genuine interest. It was more like Gossip Girl interviewing. And it was a lot of like, well, what about this? And what about that? And like trying to fear monger me. And I'm like, okay, well, those are natural things that, what if it doesn't fly? Okay, well, it might not fly. Then I take another leap of faith and I try again. I recognize if one wing's broken, I'm not going to be able to fly very well. So what's wrong with that wing? I got to fix it. Okay, now both wings are stronger. I tripped on the landing, so like maybe I got to watch out for that stone next time. And like you revise the plan. That doesn't mean you stop completely and say this is never for me. And so you could be around people who have just never done it, and so they're trying to convince you not to because it seems too scary. And I don't know if that's a complete sentence there, because I do feel like I think the people in my past knew that I was capable and that they weren't. And I think I had questions that they never asked. And I think I was looking for answers that they didn't need. And I think that's why people have tried to stop me, because a lot of people don't try things because they've never seen it done. But I didn't see it, but I could see it. And just because they couldn't doesn't mean I can't. And I started recognizing like they were living their life due to like these outdated belief systems and relying on someone out there in the sky to save them when they couldn't even save themselves. And there was things where like I had to learn how to think for myself. I had to trial and error so many things like belief systems and manifestation over in spirituality. And then I had to go back to, Christianity and wonder if, am I doing something wrong over in the spiritual realm? And, am I doing something that's causing me some sort of danger in the Jesus Christ area? And I just got so sick and tired of trying to abide by all these belief systems and rules that felt like a Santa Claus for adults. And then I just got to the point where I'm like, okay, if I was on an island somewhere, how would I tell what is right and what is wrong? And how would I get a goal accomplished if I'm by myself on this island? And I realized like I was just overworking my system with all these other people like trying to tell me what to do, and they were trying to control me, and it was cruel, and they were using my emotions. And you know what? It's like I was never allowed to just rest. I was required to like get up and keep moving, even in the health field where like I was looking for, some time off for depression. Like the doctor's like, here, take a pill. Like a number of times I've been recommended to take a pill for the depression. But for me, I don't want to numb the depression. I want to know why I'm depressed. Instead of just saying you have depression, I'm like, why am I so sad? That's not normal to just feel so sad when there's so many things that we have access to on this planet. And just because I was where I was and I didn't have access to this ease of prosperity doesn't mean I can't find a way there. And so I just had to start looking at systems that were built by certain people for certain reasons that were controlling, and it sounded very my way or the highway. But then I also recognized in spirituality where it was very open-ended and no results. So that didn't feel disciplined either. Like I don't feel like it felt very woo-woo, which is what I needed after coming from such a constricted religious background. I needed that exhale. And that's what spirituality was for me. I could exhale and I had room to move, but it's almost too much room to move where it's just like, okay, what are the rules happening here? Like, how am I going to do this? And it just felt like it was like kind of make up your own rules, which is fine, but you still need some sort of structure. I still need plans. I still need to pay my bills. So like that sort of like up in the high in the sky kind of, that was just the opposite of religion. And so like I pulled it's kind of like this chair is too small, or this chair is too hard, and this is too soft, and this one's just right. And I had to keep doing that in life where I'm like this, I was going from one extreme to the other. In political parties, I go from one extreme to the other because I could see benefits in both those parties, because one extreme is never a good place to settle in. It doesn't address everyone's needs, and there's like a middle ground where I feel like we can benefit both sides and satisfy both people, and where everyone's heard and everyone's needs are met, because we're all human. And that's what we all connect on, is like the human factor, not necessarily like the color of our skin or our gender that we associate with, all these things that are important to each and own. But as a human being, we all deserve food and shelter, and to be heard and understood. And while I don't have to necessarily have your belief system, it means I don't have to hate you either. And so like I found a lot of people, when I started moving on my own way, in my own way, they were really targeting me and coming out of their lane to try to stop me. I wasn't doing anything. I was just following my guide, which was my inner child, and like recognizing like I'm prepared for an adult life that is successful, because I wasn't developed as a child properly. And so I had to go and figure that out. And so the more I went inward like that is where I found help. And so like I didn't find help in affirmations because I didn't believe them. I was not believing the affirmations, like I am not well. I am not okay with living my life the way it's set up for us right now. And so to kind of say like I'm okay right now when I'm not, felt very like off. And it's kind of like that impulsive need to like shut down the pain. And so when I listened to the pain, it told me what I wasn't getting and what I wasn't receiving and what I hadn't gotten as a child. And so like I'm living a life that is cold and cruel and isolated, because like I'm not living by everyone else's fucked up rules that they took from God knows how many years and decades and whatever times ago, by who knows who. I don't know that dude. The idea of the seas parting sounds delusional. And the idea that, I can sit here and someone in the spiritual realm can, I have to cut a cord to disconnect from somebody, and that they have that power over me, that sounds delusional too. Like, how does somebody from that distance have power over me in this house? Now, can they get into my mind? Yes, that's what I found. These belief systems get into your mind, and that's how they control you. And so the sooner I started dispelling all these belief systems, then I realized they never had any control over me in the first place. And a lot of people who try to gaslight you and mentally and emotionally abuse you, they really want you to feel some sort of way, and they want you to do it yourself so they don't have to put their hands on you. And that makes them feel like I didn't do anything bad to you because I didn't hit you, I didn't slap you, I didn't physically abuse you, so I'm okay over here. I'm not that bad of a person. And in reality, all they have to do is ask for forgiveness, and that sin is gone. And the thing with a sin is like, really, you're just learning right from wrong, how to be better, not to be so, self-damaging, or to be aware of others and not to infringe upon others, personal space. And so like the idea of like labeling these things as sins, where like you need to be punished, it's like not necessarily punished, but you do need to learn how to be, to have common courtesy of other people around you. And then like in the spiritual reality, it's just like they got all these people, and they've always got, it's the opposite. One is like overly controlling of women, and one is like almost like to the opposite, where I felt like this is not me either. This is not my space. And so that's where it got me. I'm like, if I was on an island and I didn't have crystals, I didn't have cards, if I didn't have the Bible, how would I figure out, like, how would I make it through my life? Who do I have to rely on? Because I couldn't go to anybody, because at this point in my life, in all the support sectors, the social services, there are predators there that are getting paid to support you. And nobody's supervising them because they don't know what to look for, because they're the ones that hired them. And or done by design. And so I got to a point where I'm like, okay, what is real out here, and like I'd have these trust falls that I'd have to take to continue my rest and recovery. And somehow, like, it's through anything that anyone else has access to. I don't have any special access to anybody else. And so I would make it through these trust falls, and I'm coming up to another one, and I don't know what it's going to look like. And to be honest, I don't like the bumpy roads of the past trust falls I've taken, leaps of faith. And so this way, I'm like taking things into my own hands. And it's really, I've chosen to press myself by removing some of these structures that are meant to be supportive, but unfortunately, I'm not feeling supported, because the hands that provide them are very conditional in their loving and support. Not all of them, but there's some integrated in there. And so when people can't recognize the predator or the abuser in the room, that makes me feel unsafe in that environment to spend too much time there and to receive support there. And then so there's other things where it's like, so how am I going to do this if God is just there for guidance and not necessarily to provide a soft landing? I had to start looking at how am I now codependent on God, where like, I don't know what God can do. I don't know, because I've been doing a lot of this myself, and while God is there as a support, we'll assume, right? Because like, what is God? We don't know. You can tell me what God is, but I don't know you. You're a stranger and you have very different experiences from me. So who is to tell us who God is, what he can do, what she can do, who, you know? And so like, I just got to a point where I can no longer rely on other people's experiences because I don't know that their experiences or their opinions. And I started recognizing these people's experiences were just opinions based on what they'd heard, like hearsay from other people. It's like parroting information and carrying it line to line to line. These people don't know how to make money. They know how to use people. They're opportunistic, and they know how to schmooze people to get a job position. It's who you know, not how you grow. And so I had to recognize there's a lot of people in these positions on pedestals that have placed themselves there or been placed there by other people, not necessarily because they have words of wisdom, but because they look good. And it makes them look good. And they don't really care if they can do the job. It's all about looks and if they're making the money. They don't care how they make the money, And so when I started recognizing like I had more wisdom and experience than a lot of these people who are in these higher positions, even recognizing like I would listen to like spiritual gurus or people in, high celebrity status. And I'm like, I don't know that what you're saying makes sense because it doesn't sound like you got there the way I did. And so like acknowledging everyone has a different path, but still acknowledging you didn't do this the way you said you did. Like claiming that you did it from the bottom up while you're living in your parents' basement, that's not the same. Well, it may have been like not a great healthy environment. If you're not like, for me, I had to feel the responsibility. I had to feel the constant pressure to move forward. There's never a time I could just really sit back and relax. Even if I had like a time where I'm like, my bills are covered, and I gave myself time to rest and relax, I still didn't know where the next month was coming from. So while it gave me enough time to kind of like, open up and receive more information and express my emotion and find out what's going on and why I'm so miserable and why things aren't working and why, then I gave myself time to find those answers. But I'm still trial and erroring it, and I'm still recognizing like, I don't know how this works. I'm just trying to tell you the best way that I'm doing it. And so I recognize controlling people when they try to tell me what I'm doing is wrong, and I can see in their life that they have never taken a leap of faith once. So they don't know what that leap of faith looks like. They also don't know what it feels like. And so there's also people out there trying to claim that they've done the work, the inner work, but I can see if you did the inner work, when you come out that other side, you have a very different perspective as when you went in there. It's kind of like a cave, a dark cave. You go in one end and you go through the darkness. When you come out, it's hard to see. All of a sudden, the light is like, it's all in your face, and you're like, oh my God, I can see everything. Oh, I don't want to see it. And you want to almost go back into the cave because now it's like the true colors are almost too much to see in the reality of society and could be even my own life. Recognizing like I got a lot of growing still to do, even though I've done so much growing, and I can see where I'm more grown than a lot of people around me, but I still have to, work and get myself out there and do the footwork. Even though I've already done so much work to repair the damage that was done as a child, I'm now I feel like I'm starting more at ground zero again, where now I have to start my business, just like somebody who had received that sort of nurturing touch and support. But I still don't have the financial backing. I still have that stone coming up against me. In Indiana Jones, where he has that big stone rolling down and he's running and he's got to try to get away from it. It's kind of what it feels like at times. And so I recognize when people are talking about they've made the change, they've done the work, I can see, because when you do the work, you can see it in others or you don't. And so it can be frustrating because a lot of people will look at that and say, well, they're just this or they're just that, or and it's just like, well, no, like they're still lying about who they are. So that's being deceitful. You know, the idea is like you're honest about who you are and you're authentic. That's the whole goal, is authenticity and being able to speak up without being judged, and allowing that other person to make their own judgment based on your honesty. So when people are showing up with a facade still, that's not honesty. That's not authenticity. And so, yeah, I really recognize, like, being vulnerable, it really helped me, because a lot of people see that as a weakness. And so what they don't recognize is, in my vulnerability, it is something that I just naturally do, but I'm also an observer naturally. And so in that experience, I'm picking up a lot of stuff. I'm comparing it to what I've picked up in the past, and I'm gonna use it moving forward. And that's just how it is. Controlling people, they really want to control how you see them. And so it's you'll see it when you've done the work. You can see it in someone else or not. And so that's also how I recognize controlling people, is like they really want you to, they're working really hard on their sort of like facade and costume. And if they would have worked that hard on their inner, it's like it's the behavior they're missing. They're mistaking. It's like they think that you're being turned off by their exterior, but it's actually their interior. It's like the bad habits, the bad behavior, the fact that they feel they need to lie to your face when you don't even know them yet. You don't even know them, and they're willing to lie right off the bat. Like that's a odd. Like, where do you go from there? You can't grow with that. You led your life on lies. You know, so like that's where these ultimately really charming and schmoozy people and high energy upbeat people really I met men like that, and they want you to believe that they're just like the life of the party. And while they are, they also want you to believe that when they're out at that party, that they're not engaging with other activities, and that they're just a nice, good time guy. And I realized when I had kids, I didn't want to go out drinking. I had my kids at home, and I took that responsibility very seriously. And well, you know what, to go out for a couple drinks here and there is nothing wrong, but that's not what these people are doing. They're living their life for the weekends. That sounds like a teenager. And for me, I'm like, when I work on my everyday life, I don't need that weekend to look forward to, because I'm creating a life where every day I'm working towards my life getting easier and more relaxing and less stressful and less full of drama and chaos. And so when there's people who you can see what their lifestyles are, they're living, it's full of chaos, and they try to convince you that it's not. So it's interesting, if you learn, the more you work on yourself, that's going to help you recognize it, not only in yourself, but like in other people. So yeah, that's how I recognize controlling people and systems. So like if it was just me out here, I mean, if I was in delusion and I was dehydration, I'd be calling on something, I might be talking to something outside of me. But in reality, if I know I'm the only one on the island and I'm going to get this job done, I'm going to have to look at like how I'm going to do that, and I'm going to have to look at rest will be a part of that. You can't just do everything on your own and think that you're just going to keep going nonstop when you're doing everything. You're going to have to slow things down. You're going to have to prioritize your task list. You're going to have to look at, like, do you build a shelter first and then you build food? And like, there's things that you have to put into place. And so messy people don't like organization. They don't make time for organization. They don't look time for their health. They don't realize like their health is tied into their wealth, and vice versa. And so that's how I recognize who is for me and who is not. And then people will try to convince me like going out binge drinking every here and there is okay. And for me, I'm like, it makes me feel like shit, and I feel like I'm dying the next day, because when you're so healthy and you haven't done it for a while, it's going to make you feel like shit. And I just don't get it anymore. I don't find value in anymore. Like you know what? I don't like wine. Tastes like shit to me. I would never drink that willingly. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like there's so many choices I've been making, and I'm like, if I had money, would I make this choice? And so I had to look at like not just like these people, but I had to go inside and be like, why am I making decisions? Because it feels like I'm kind of letting things control me too. Because if I recognize this person for who they are. And if I had money, would I be around them? And it's not like a I'm higher and holier than them. I just recognize like that we make decisions based on our circumstances at times, where you think like, is this as good as it's going to get, kind of thing, or there's no harm in connecting with these people. But when you recognize, like, as soon as you pull yourself away and they feel rejection in that, then it's kind of like, what, there's no point in connecting in the first place. So it's like really important to look for people who you can connect with, who are leading in the same path as you, who are on the same, because there's like either this way or that way, and then there's a group in the middle, and they don't know which way they're going because they're indecisive. And so like when I'm decisive, and I may not know exactly how I'm going to get to my goal, but my goal is being financially free. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I know I'm going to get there. And so like if there are people who are trying to, ride my coattails and try to convince me there's somebody that they're not, like, that's just something I got to cut loose. And it's something you got to do. And like I said, it's these people trying to fake a facade, but it's also you, recognizing you're lonely, but settling for someone who is not going your way, is just going to pull you back down to an old past way that you were in. So I had to recognize, I can't take anyone with me at this time because I'm not fully cooked myself. And while I am looking to meet friends and stuff along the way, that's not something I'm going to be running into. That's not something like it's an idea that is now crossing my brain and realizing that might be nice, but like I'm still focused on me and my money. That's where I'm going first, So, yeah, I think also another factor is controlling you with money. And some people want you to fall low so they can be the one to pick you up, and that makes them feel good, picking up broken people. And so these people are almost like vultures waiting for you to fall when you're like just starting to grow, and these people want to take from you because like that's how they make themselves feel big. And so I had to recognize that these people don't really necessarily want me to win, because like you'll recognize these people aren't fully supporting me, and that's weird because you do that for others. So you have selective support from them, but you're giving over investment energy in them, and where it hurts you to pull away from them because you're like, I really thought we were going somewhere, and you're like, you could really see the potential in them. And so I've had to recognize I can't invest in potential. If it's not there, it's not there. And making just very cut and dry decisions based on someone's behaviors and how they value themselves and their health. And if they don't value themselves, then that's going to be like, I can't invest too much in that, because I don't want to get connected to someone just for them to like, if they can't recognize boundaries with themselves and with other people and with your, the healthy or unhealthy choices you're making, like they really are just all about them at the time. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's the way it is. Some people are so enmeshed in their pain that they can't see the needs of other people. And that's where I'm like, you know what? I've spent too much time in those kind of dynamics. So I don't care what your intentions are at this time. I can't invest in someone who is not walking with me in the direction that I'm going. And that means honesty. That's saying, am I honestly making accurate choices that are leading me to a more healthy, wealthy lifestyle? Or am I just making excuses and blaming everyone else for my problems? Because I've been there too. And I have to recognize where, that resentment and blame really got me stuck and pointing fingers at other people. While they did hurt me, I also have to recognize that I have power to show up differently and move in a different direction than them. And there are some times where the pain that you experienced in the past pulls you in certain directions and you don't know why. And a lot of people will call that soulmate energy, and I call it that's soul family, in the way that's just a past pattern coming back up. That's what that comfort and magnetism is it's that temptation. It's that craving for something that you think is supposed to be loving, and in reality, that's how your parents showed up to you. They weren't loving you. They were possessive over you. They were controlling over you. And so like you can fall back into those patterns, and they feel tempting because it's that false, impulsive, quick energy. That's where the love bombing shows up. That's where the quick connections show up. That's where, you can remove that protective layer and just feel like you can let your guard down. But like, give it enough time and you recognize you just laid in bed with a predator, and then now you're anxious, and now you don't, your nervous system is shot, and now they're saying things and you're like, is that passive aggressive? And they're like, oh, you're just in your head, you're just, you're just jealous, and then now you're back at square one. So I have to learn how to recognize not only controlling people, but how to control myself, and when that is needed. Because there's times where along this independent path of mine, there's been so many times where you do get lonely. Well, I enjoy the quiet, and I'm glad that I don't have a lot of people that I had in my past there, because it really felt like empty, and I was like waiting for something to happen, and I just had to take my control back and start working on my own life, because I thought being enmeshed with these people made me part of something, and it really was nothing. It was not. It was filler. These people were filler, and that's what they do. They fill their life with people, and I recognize, you know what? These people don't want the same things I want. They don't want to invest the same way I do, and so like I was always over giving and under receiving. And so you have to control that need to give to people because you feel bad for them, or that you feel guilty, and that, you know what, like, you may have more than someone, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have enough right now to give, you know, for another person. And it doesn't mean that you're not ever going to give. Like, in all honesty, you've been giving since birth. And so there's going to be another time where you can give exactly what you want to give and for the right reasons, but it may not just be right now. And a lot of people don't like that, because they need you to give to them unconditionally. That's what they require from other people, because that's how they survive in life, you know, by taking and getting supply from other people. And it's not just like resources, it can be attention. It can be finding attention online. It can be finding attention out in the streets. It can be finding attention in a group. Being the head of the household gives you attention and that sort of status, without the actual like life experience resume that says I've done hard things and I've survived. You know, some of these things are just, they're just being basic humans, and without the kindness and all the cruelty. And you want an award for that? You want to be recognized for being a bully without the name of the bully? And now you want me to see you as a good person? Come on. You know, so there's a lot of people that are just living in delusion, and so like they're going to try to control you, but you have to recognize how to control yourself. And the more you can pull yourself back and observe that person and recognize who they actually are, is going to help you, because the longer you hold your line, anybody who sees value in you is going to wait and be willing to wait around, and not in a way that for you to always make, like, if this is romantic, I don't think, like, I have no problem making a first move with a man. I have no problem with that, but I also don't want to be the only one that is required to put themselves up for rejection. You know, I'm not going to make a move on a man if I show that I like them and they're not showing me that they like me. Like, I'm talking about like a past experience, like last year, I would say, where that was my last experience where I felt romantic towards a person. And I didn't know him that well at all. I didn't know him, but there's something about him where I'm like, that he seems like a good person, but like I wasn't ready at the time either. And so and I don't even know that he was available, to be honest. I don't know much about him. I just thought he reminds me of me. Like, it felt like he was carrying like the load of the world on his shoulders, and I'm like, I feel that way too. And so I'm like, maybe we're the same. And we were similar. I think we were both unavailable emotionally, or one way or another. I was single, but I don't know that he was available. So I just know that it felt like there was times where I would be more brave, and then he would be less brave, and then he would come around and he would be more I can recognize if someone's feeling themselves or not, and sometimes I could be like, okay, he's feeling himself, but then it made me nervous. And so like the time was always off, and like I said, like I don't go back to my past. There was never anything that person did wrong to me, but he was in touch with the bully, and he seemed to be quite close to her, and so that was the problem. I'm like, if you can't be backing the bully, I can't be friends with someone who backs the bully. That's a unsafe, that's a high risk, low reward position to be in. So yeah, I just had to recognize like where there's an equal give and take, and it's not something I'm looking for now. I've got other things to focus on. Oops. And so I don't know if I have really much advice for that. I guess for me, when I look for that, I know I felt like pulling teeth. If I feel like it's pulling teeth to get to know you, not to talk to you, but to get to know you, that's gonna be you got to remember, like, emotional abuse is that thing that makes you feel like you're connected to someone. And so, like, you got to recognize, like, are you, that requires talking about the emotional connection comes from talking about hard things that are uncomfortable, not necessarily that we talk all the time, or that I can use a really comfy tone when I'm talking to you, or that I make time for you necessarily. It's like, do you talk about the hard things? Are you able to talk about things that you don't um, acclaim right now, things that you haven't done that you're working on? Can you acknowledge, like, yes, we're not perfect, but I do need to work in this area? It's also like, yeah, because I feel like a lot of narcissists kind of offer up that vulnerability, that it's like a fake vulnerability. It's like a trap of vulnerability, and it really doesn't say much. They just play the victim, and it's in order to get you to feel bad for them, to give to them. So, like, there's a difference. Like, I don't want somebody who's gonna, if I feel bad for that person, that's a sign that that person is not for me. I don't want to feel bad for a man. I don't want to feel bad and feel like I'm carrying a man. I don't want to, that's not fun for me, you know? Sorry, I'm adjusting. And so whenever I come to situations like that and people like that, that's a sign. That's like, I don't want to feel bad for you. I want to empower you. I want you to work on yourself, but that doesn't mean I'm doing the work for you. That's like, you can be inquisitive, but not like draining or needy. I don't know. So I think I'm just rambling at this point, but I just thought, like, controlling people, well, it is part of the conversation, because there's people out there. A lot of the people that I went towards made me feel bad for them, because they did play the victim. That was done by design. That wasn't an oopsie. That was like, that's part of the facade. Because they would always bitch about, like, their ex-partner, or they would blame other people for where they're at right now. And, like, I can acknowledge I've been financially abused, but I can also acknowledge I have spent my money in very wrong ways for very wrong reasons. But I can also recognize where I worked my butt off in a workplace, and he refused to hire me as a manager when I was doing the manager job. So, like, it's something, when you listen for it, you'll hear it. And if you're rushing in to relationships, connections, the people are looking for to get something from you. It can be your attention, it can be money, it can be your resources, and you're like, I don't got much. Well, it could be more than they got, or it could be enough that could provide them, like, a triangulation supply. Some of these people, like, use you as as a gold toy, and then they get bored with you, and then they go back to an ex. And so, like, it could be just you could be someone that they're using you to make someone else jealous. Even their friend group, they could be using you to make their other friends jealous. This is what people do. It's weird, but that's what they do. So that's how I recognize control and controlling environments. Like, when you want to stand alone, they're going to respect that. They're not going to try to get you into some sort of, connection, quick connection, or I think some questions are fine, but be careful of the fear mongering. There's going to be fear mongering. And be careful of people trying to portray themselves. Remember, you got to listen to yourself. That's the whole thing with controlling people. You got to listen to your intuition. And so the farther you get from them, and the farther you get out of these dynamics, like, the more clarity you get, because it's like that emotional addiction, that discard, and that love bombing. That is very emotional. It's very addictive, because you didn't get anything in childhood like that. So, like, you have to give that to yourself. And the more you give what you didn't give to yourself or get in childhood, you're less it makes it harder for you to be controlled by other people, because the more independent you become. That's what I feel like inner child healing really is like, it's not about allowing yourself to be that little 3-year-old toddler back then, and be kind of like goofy and silly all over the place like a 3-year-old. And I mean, if that's your way, that's your way. But for me, I believe a true 0 to 5-year-old is curious, confident in their curiosity, and eager to learn, patient with themselves, acknowledge, like, think of a toddler when they first learn how to walk. They're not like, oh my God, you idiot, you fell down again. They're not saying that. They might take a break, but they're like their memory's gonna forget it, and they're gonna keep going. They're gonna be like, well, I need to walk, so one way or other, I got to figure this out, you know. And so these fears are not born. We're not born with these fears. These are laid upon us. So recognize where the people around you, the systems around you, could be, you know, really fueling that fear in a way that it makes you stuck, instead of, like, you know, there can be things that are scary, and I tend to, you know, run towards them, because I'm like, well, if I'm gonna lose my house, then I'm gonna lose my house. Like, let's rip this band-aid off, and, like, if this is what it is, let's do it, instead of, like, prolonging my, you know, my pain of, like, am I gonna stay here or not? Like, if we're gonna move on to the next chapter of my life, let's do this. And if I'm gonna stay here, I'm gonna stay here. I just kind of, you know, I find I think it was Alex Hermosi who made a comment, like, you know, make it impossible to avoid, or make it impossible to avoid the growth, or something like that. Like, put yourself in a position where you force yourself to do the thing that you don't want to do. And so, like, that's removing crutches, that's removing people, that's removing belief systems that are keeping you stuck, and then keep you falling and not doing the work that you need to do, so that you can make that next trust fall. And whether make it, but also make it easier. And so I think that's important to look at. But that's all I got for now. I hope that's helpful. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this kind of content. I'm going to try to put more into words about what has helped me, my path. And while I don't have any money, I do have a lot of wisdom. And so it does help me get through my times, and it helps me find out what path to take, and if I'm off or if I'm on, or, you know, it's kind of short what is it, shortcuts, I feel, because there's a lot of things I got caught up in. If I wish I would have focused on something else, I think I would have alleviated a lot of the painful experiences that I had, and got me to the prosperity a little bit faster, in my opinion. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.